Hey, what up, guys? Welcome back. So today I'm going to do a deck profile for Nekroz deck. Now, the YCS LA and the 250th. I think there's also one in South America and in Europe. That's coming up. And to celebrate the event, I believe the Time Wizard format is going to be really popular. So this deck profile is essentially for the Time Wizard format. And what that means is Time Wizard format is basically just a format uh, or a couple of different formats that follow certain rules with like different time master rules. They're different ban lists of that time period and different legal sets of that time period. So for the YCS 250th, I believe three have been confirmed. It's going to be the 100th YCS ban list, the 150th, and the 200th, which I believe is 2013, 2014, or 2012. Sorry, 2012, which is the 100th, 2015, which is the 150th, and then for the 200, I think that's 2018. So those are the three formats that they're going to be doing. They're also going to be supporting other formats, probably GOAT format, which is 2006, 2007 ish, or around that time period, um, and then also probably Edison format, which is 2010. So that's really good news for people who have decks that are old or they just enjoy those particular format. For me, I used to have a GOAT deck. I don't have one anymore. I don't really particularly enjoy that format too much, to be honest. I do have obviously my Edison Blackwing deck, and then now I have this Nekroz deck. And well, this deck is kind of built for my bulk. I had a lot of bulk Nekroz cards, so I just kind of built this for fun. Thought I show it off. During the Nekroz format, it's basically the April 2015 ban list. So that is right after they sort of neutered Nekroz a little bit. They sort of neutered Cleave Force a little bit. They sort of like touch every deck a teeny bit without completely destroying them. So this format is where you get the infamous Jin Lock, those sort of I guess plays. Namely because Vanity's emptiness was limited to one, and so you had to find another way to sort of stop your opponent from special summoning, and so the Jin Lock was popularized. The whole blend, controversy happened, and a bunch of other things happened. But this format's pretty fun. It's pretty interesting to play in. Some of the best decks of this time period, like I mentioned, is Cleave Force, obviously Nekroz. They're not tier 0, but they're definitely high tier 1. They were tier 0 the format right before, but tier 1 this format. Also, you have Burning Abyss, you have Shaddolls, you have Stellar Knights. So those are just a couple of the decks that were more or less relatively competitive during this time period. And so, yeah, I thought it'd be a kind of an interesting throwback to sort of talk about this time period. For me personally, I didn't play Nekroz. It was too expensive back then. I think Breeder Nax were like 150 when it first came out, maybe about $100 or so when this ban list rolled around. So it was too expensive for me back then. And I think I was playing Stellar Knights. So Stellar Knights Constellars. That was my particular deck. But this deck, my friend had, and we were able to play with it a little bit. So I had some familiarity with the deck, but I'm not like I didn't play during that time period with this particular deck. So this build is namely kind of me looking up what people were playing back then, the ratios, some of the ideas, and more or less kind of like a it is, I guess, in the sense of that deck, because I can't even remember what the deck looked like back then. So I had to honestly look it up, and kind of this is just my interpretation of the deck, some of the ratios and the cards. So it definitely is not going to be unique. I mean, this deck is by now 8 years old, so I'm not sure if the format is solved more or less, but some of the cards are kind of set in stone. But there are a few card choices that you can sort of add in or take out or play depending on your style of play. And like I said, this is just kind of my style and what I've been test playing with my friend. He plays Shadows, so it's sort of a back and forth. It's a little different, and so this might be not the greatest for uh, like a mirror match against another Necroz deck, but for the most part, it's kind of a jack of all trades, sort of a master of none. So, but yeah, let's talk about it. Spend some time talking about it. So I kind of gave you guys sort of the brief history, and then I'm going to talk about the deck and then some card choices, and then yeah, this should be sort of fun. All right, so first card here is the Nekroz of Decisive Arm. For those who don't know what it is, it's basically just a giant beat stick, and it's sort of I guess an honest or a Kalut for the deck. The reason why I decided to play it, because I found that there's certain times I just need to beat over something. I believe Cleafor's Tower was also a very popular card um, running around. Also, so that card, Nekroz has almost no way of outing that card except for either running it over. So, yeah, a Decisive Arm is kind of your answer to towers, and it also kind of helps with certain other Djinn locks. And how that helps with the Djinn locks is if you have a normal summonable Nekroz monster like Dance Princess or the Great Sage of Nekroz, you can normal summon them, attack, and pump their attack power by 1,000 to run over a Colossus or whatever the Djinn lock is on. So yeah, Decisive Armor kind of nice for that instances, or you can like run over a Winda or something like that if you have the Dance Princess and whatnot. So that's why I play it. It's also a 33 beat stick, so yeah, there you go. One Trishula. You could honestly play two Trishulas if you wanted to. I found that I only ever really needed one, but if you did want another one, you can add a second Trishula. But I found that you only really need one. You mainly use it just to protect the Colossus that's under the Djinn lock, and I'll show you that combo a little bit later, in case you guys don't know what the Djinn lock looks like. So you can do that. You protect it. You can also bring it back from the graveyard using a cycle. So I think just one is okay. I don't think you really need two, but some people like two. Like if you play this format, a lot of people will play around getting Trishula, so they'll like set all the cards, from their hand, so they have no hand, or they leave their board empty. That way you can't Trishula them. So Trishula is not that great in terms of trying to get its effect off, but it is good for protecting the Colossus locked, or the Djinn locked. Next off, just two Valks. I found that I only needed two Valks, but like I said, this is also not a preference. You can also play a third Valk if you wanted to. For me personally, I like two Valk. I don't think I really needed it. You probably want to play three Valk if you're playing against a mirror match, because three Valk will allow you to leave your board empty and not have to be worried about being OTK'd. Because if you leave something on the board, then you're gonna get Trishula, which also sucks. So it's up to you. I think two Valk is okay. Some people will cut the Decisive Arm and play a third Valk. But me personally, I'm just playing just the two for now, and I think that's has been okay. Same thing with Gungnir here. Also another optional card. Some people run her, some people don't run her. Some people would rather play triple Valk over having the Gungnir, or they'll like play none of this. They won't play the Gungnir and the Decisive Arm, and they'll play like, just triple Valk. So this ratio of like Nekroz boss monster is totally up to you. Why I like Gungnir so far is that you can actually Djinn lock with her also. That's why I like her. I don't particularly always use her to protect the Colossus if it's Djinned. I sometimes use her as a secondary backup for the Djinn lock, because it's easy to get it off with her. You can almost never Djinn lock with Valk. You can sometimes Djinn lock with the Trishula. So I've done Djinn lock with Valk, or sorry, with Trishula and Gungnir, but never with any of the other ones. And like I said, I'll mention how you can Djinn lock and stuff later. But yeah, all right. Then you obviously have just the triple unicorn, your best basically the best Nekroz monster after Brio, or I guess arguably second best monster. But yeah, you definitely need three, just to recycle your stuff, and that you wanna be able to open it up consistently with a Senju or Manju to do the Jin lock. Next to Brionac, he was semi-limited, unfortunately, or I guess fortunately for the players of this particular format. So two Brionacs there. Two Colossus. Some people like just the one. I still prefer the two. It's nice to have a backup, and you can always, he's your main target to use with the Jin locks. So I say having two is better than one. So that's just me personally there. All right, and then sort of like your cookie cutter normal summonable monsters. You have the Senju, the Manju. Definitely would run three of each to open them up consistently. They are part of the combo, so you do really want to see them. And I don't think you can play any less. Some people I've seen they played something like this. They'll play two Senju, three Manju. Because I guess if you do open up multiple copies in the hand, they're kind of dead because you only normal summon once per turn. But me personally, I like seeing multiple in my hand is okay with me because the deck does brick, so, and then the Manjus kind of help to unbrick them in some sense. Me personally, I like playing one Dance Princess. What it does is it can kind of help with protecting Jin because they can't target it with something like Book of Moon. They have to target her instead. And you can use her with the Decisive Arm to also run over the Jins. You can run over Winda. You can run over a few things. You can't run over the Antonillus, I think is the shuttle card, the Water Fusion. And that card's kind of a pain to deal with. But we do have a couple outs of that. So you're playing against Shaddolls. That's something you do have to pay attention to. Is if they summon that thing out with the Water Fusion, you're gonna be in a world of pain. So, but yeah, Dance Princess is kind of nice in that sense. I don't really often tribute her, but she can help in case you do banish your one ofs. If you do banish your one of Tristula, or you banish your one of Decisive Arm for a mirror play or something like that. She can help you recycle them back if you tribute her either for a fusion, or sorry, for a ritual summon, or you use Valk to tribute her. You'll be able to add back one of your banished Nekroz monsters. So she kind of helps with that. Just kind of recycle some of your cards, and also to protect, and also to run over some stuff. So that's me personally. If not, you could always use her for a Exceed play. She is level 4, so there's a bunch of Exceed level 4s that we go into. So she got some utility, but some people don't run her, or they run the Great Sage. I personally don't like the Great Sage as much compared to Dance Princess. So yeah, all right. Then you have two Shrits. You can play one. He's either a 1 or 3, 1, 2, 3. So I personally like 2, because you'll get him when you need him, and you have a second copy as a backup. 3 is I think just too much. There's not many warrior type rituals you can search for. I think you only really have 3 targets. I think you have like the Tristula and the two, or actually just 5 targets of warrior type. If you tribute the Shrit, these are only 5 cards you can search off of it. So he's not as great as before, and he does brick your hand a little bit. So I say 2 is good. 1 you can use, and then the other one, if you want, you can dump with Lavalval Chain for additional value. But I think 2 is good. I don't think you really need more than 2. And then you have the 1 Jin. Some people play 2. I just 1 because he's always accessible through Lavalval Chain. If you do open up with him, he's actually fine in your hand because you can still use him as a material to like ritual summon. So I think 1 is good enough. Don't really want to have more than 1 because you will break if you play more than 1. And then okay, so for hand traps we have 2 Maxis and 2 Veilers. You could definitely play 3 Maxis. Me personally, during this format, I remember Maxi not being all that great. Honestly, it's kind of weird saying that because nowadays Maxi is absolutely busted. Like, it's ban worthy. If you play Master Duel, it ends your turn. In 2015 format and a little bit earlier, it wasn't always the case. Sometimes your opponent will just normal summon or special summon once and just pass, and that's completely fine. Most of the time, Maxi ends up being an upstart, so it's not that great. Against Cleaforths, like unless they pendulum summon, you're getting one draw off of Cleaforth. Same with Shaddols. You're playing against Shaddols, you're getting maybe one draw off of Shaddols. Against Nekroz, it's okay. You can maybe get one or two draws off of Nekroz Mirror. Against BA, obviously this card is really good against BA. That's the main thing. Against BA, against Stellar Knights, decks that like special summon a lot. Those are decks that where Maxi comes in really really good. Otherwise, against most of the top tier decks, it's like mid. It's not that great. It's not that powerful. Ironically, because most of them just special summon once and they'll pass turn. Valor is still pretty nice. Valor, you can hit if you're going against the mirror match. You can stop Trishula. You can stop the Lavolvo chain from going off. So there's a couple of cards that Valor is still nice for. Now you can play her. You don't have to play her. You can play one copy if you want, or just cut her completely. I like to. It's like bad against Shaddols because most of their monsters don't really do anything. I guess you can hit Mathematician. You can hit a couple of things. You can hit Construct, I guess. But yeah, it's still a nice card to have sometimes. Worst case scenario is a scenario you can also summon Valor out and use her as a tuner with a couple of your really big Nekroz monsters like Trishula and Decisive Arm, and actually synchro with her. I'll talk about the extra deck a little bit later. But yeah, I still like the 2 Valors and the 2 Maxis. I think that's a relatively okay ratio there. Okay, and this ratio right here, you have 2 of each ritual spell. For this particular build, or not just particular build, but just sort of meta, I think most people were running this. Some people were running 5, so you can do like 2, 2, 1. Me personally, I'm okay with just maxing them out because you will banish them a lot of the times in the graveyard, and sometimes it's just nice to have a second copy in case you do that. So, but they will break sometimes. But it's kind of nice to have them in hand also sometimes if you have the Gungnir on the board, because Gungnir you can pitch any Nekroz card to pop a card, so you can also pitch your dead ritual cards if you do have Gungnir on the board. So I like having 2, 2, 2, or a total of 6, I guess. So yeah, and if you do need some siding space, you can always cut out one cycle. But yeah, all right. Then for our searchers that are not Manju and Senju, we also one prep because prep was limited. Rhoda, I'm just playing the 1. I've seen some build that play 3. I've seen some build that play 2. Me personally, I just don't really need the Colossus or the Strit as much in my hand. Some people play more copies. They'll tech in cards like Exile Force, or they'll tech in cards like DD Warrior Lady, and those cards are there to help you out the Jin lock. So you can search out DD Warrior Lady, summon DD Warrior Lady attack. Granted, it's not a sure way out of the Jin lock if they have a Valk on the board. Then they'll probably Valk your DD Warrior Lady, and you're still stuck under the Jin lock. So it's not like guaranteed for you to be able to out the Jin lock. Same thing with like Exile Force. If you search for an Exile Force and you try to pop the Jin, if they have Gungnir or they have Trishula on the board or Trishula in the hand, then that also invalidates that out too. So just beware. But those are some tech options you can play that at least I've seen on some particular deck lists, and just playing back then. So those are that. And then these are essentially my outs to Jin. You have 2 Eclipse, 1 Book of Moon, and 1 Raigeki. I don't like triple Book of Eclipse. It's obviously dead sometimes, and it can be kind of bad. But it's the best Jin out because it doesn't target. Where like Book of Moon does target, and that gets stopped by Trishula. And then Raigeki is also nice. It doesn't target, but it gets stopped by Gungnir. So I kind of like just one of each. They're generically good, and then the Eclipse is, mainly used for the Jin. Otherwise, in most matchups, if I'm not playing against the mirror, I would side this out if I can. But yeah, Book of Moon, Raigeki, Jin. So you have 4 outs, 4 ways to technically out it, plus the Decisive Arm. But yeah. And then the last couple cards here, we have one MST, one Vanity. Vanity's still pretty good card, I think. MST is namely just to out other Vanity emptinesses, or maybe they out a floodgate of some kind. Maybe they have a skill drain, or they have yeah, just something like that. It's just to draw one out in the main deck. I've seen some lists play two. For me personally, I'm expecting to play against a ton of mirror matches, uh, against other or even Shaddolls where they don't really have that much back row presence. So I just play the one just to out it. But for the most part, I'm expecting to play against more Nekroz decks, which don't run any back row at all, except for maybe a Vanity's Emptiness. So MSC at that point is kind of dead. So just the one. So that makes up the main deck right there. Total of 40 cards. Let's talk about the side deck real quick. That should be pretty fast. Me personally here, I like triple Danko Sekka. Great against BAs, great against Stellar Knights. There's still a ton of back row decks back then. It's good against Cleave Force also. Yeah, you go standby main. And make sure they don't have anything in their standby phase. Just summon Denko and call it a day. Allows you to be really good going second. Going first, you might not want Denko Sekka, but going second though for sure. I'd say triple Denko Sekka is sort of mandatory. Triple or double. Next off, I have two Lancias. I like this against Nekroz. It wasn't very that popular back then, but still pretty good against the mirror matches. You can force them not to be able to banish their mirrors in the graveyard to search for other mirrors. You can also force them to not be able to Jin lock you. They dump the Jin with Lavalva Chain. You can then activate Lancia, and they won't be able to use the Jin in the graveyard as a tribute material for the ritual summons. So that's also nice. It also stops Trishula. So there's a few good use cases for this. Or if you're going for a game, you can activate Lancia during the battle phase before they can Valk. So I think Valk is a cost. So, but if you do this before, then that way they can't Valk to stop your battle phase, and you OTK them, or just get rid of whatever problematic issues you have. So it's really good against the mirror match, I believe. So I'm playing the two of right now, pretty good. And then same thing with this, same idea, but yeah, the Kaiku is also nice as another way to kind of disrupt them. If you have Kaiku in the on the board, they cannot Trish you, they cannot Valk, they can't do a lot of things because essentially Kaiku is just a permanent Lancia. The reason why you can't Trishula this away is because Trishula needs all three to resolve. All three, target one from hand, the board, and the graveyard. And it has to banish it and resolve to resolve its effect. Otherwise, if it can't do one, then it can't do any of the other two. So Kaiku is kind of nice for that. I also forgot to mention some Shaddolls deck back then. They were playing Secret Village, so Kaiku and your Priestess here, or another way to kind of hopefully play around the Secret Village, because if they have Secret Village, then you're kind of bummed and you're kind of screwed. So these are some other ways to be able to normal summon something and still be able to play your spells if you're under the Secret Village lock. So that's just something to think about there. Obviously, if you do damage with Kaiku, is also really good. You can start banishing stuff from the graveyard. Really, monsters. The old text for Kaiku says any card. I think the errata or the updated text of Kaiku says monsters only. So also very good for that scenario. All right, and then I have a third Maxi in the side. I like it against obviously like the BA, the Stellar Knights. So there you go. I will play 3 Maxi, just I won't play 3 in the main for now at least. And then I have 2 Share Rides. Share Rides, just another card against the mirror match. It's better going first. Going second, obviously not so great. But yeah, I mean it's still like basically like another Maxi. You kind of force your opponent to end their turn if you do activate the Share Ride. And then we have 2 more MSTs just for against back row heavy decks, floodgates, Cleave for scouts, make them pay 800 and blow it up. So yeah, I think MST is actually pretty good this format. So there you go. And then finally, we have 2 breakthrough skills and 2 royal decrees. Just more back row hate. We don't really play any traps, so it's always good for us. Breakthrough skill, probably good against Winda, possibly a few other cards. It's totally optional. I don't think you really need breakthrough skill. You could also play Mind Crush, but unfortunately, Mind Crush does not work the way it used to work. Because even though we're playing by 2015 rules, you have to play by current Konami policy, and current Konami policy doesn't allow you to look at your opponent's hand anymore. So even though back then in 2015, if your opponent, I don't know, adds discard Brionac and adds a Unicorn to the hand, you can activate Mind Crush, calling Unicorn, discard their Unicorn, and look at the rest of their hand. But with current Konami policy, you'll activate Mind Crush, they'll discard a Unicorn, but you won't be able to check their hand. So if your opponent's a cheat, they can they have like 2 unicorns in hand, they can just discard the one that they searched off and keep 1 unicorn in their hand. You wouldn't really know that, and at the same time you lose out on being able to see the rest of their hands. So me personally, I just don't like Mind Crush anymore. I think it's relatively unplayable. Even in Edison, this used to be limited at 1, but like I said, you have to play with current Konami policy, and so Mind Crush I don't think is very good anymore. And so, but you still play it. It's definitely like still a good card. It's just not as powerful as it used to be. So me personally, I opt not to play it. But yeah, there you go. So that's the side deck. Pretty straightforward, and not really much else to say there. Let's go look over the extra deck, and we'll finish up there. All right, guys. So extra deck wise, it's also pretty straightforward. It's a giant utility box. There's only 2 cards that is really required in the extra deck. But yeah, let's talk about it. So Quasar, this used to, you can actually, well, you can't summon this thing, but you could actually use it in a minor combo. But the reason Quasar is namely here is just because it's a level 12. So you can use Kaleidoscope, and then you can summon out a few things with this. So let me show you some combination of cards you can potentially summon out with the Kaleidoscope here. So if you activate Kaleidoscope, you send level 12. If you had a Valken hand and a Unicorn, that's level 12 right there. You can bring them both out. Most cases you normally won't. You can also bring out double Brionac, which goes into the combo, and I'll talk about that in a second here. Or you can bring out, I guess you can't bring out Gungnir because I don't play the level 5, so you can't do that. But you can also bring out Trishula and Colossus with sending the Quasar to the graveyard. The combo with Quasar, in case you didn't know, is you activate the Kaleidoscope, you would special summon out 2 Brionac, then you would link them away into this Exabeetle. So you would have this in your graveyard. Exabeetle comes out, it would actually attach the Quasar to the to itself, and then you can detach, I believe, 1 here, and then send Quasar with Exabeetle's effect, and send an opponent's card to the graveyard. Once Quasar hits the graveyard, because it was sent there from the field to the graveyard, it doesn't matter if it was a monster or not, as long as it was sent from the field to the graveyard, its effect activates, and you get to special summon a Shooting Star, which is a level 10 for this particular deck also. So you would have a Exabeetle, Shooting Star. Shooting Star's effect is cool. You can potentially attack maybe 3 times. I'm playing 2 tuners, so if you excavate 5 cards, you hit both Veilers, you can potentially attack 3 times with this thing. The only other relevant effect is that you can protect your board from destruction once per turn. It also has the ability to banish itself to stop an attack, but since it was not properly summoned by a synchro summon, it won't come back to the board once when you're trying to resolve its effect. So that's something to keep in mind. You can potentially OTK with this, because you also exceed summon on top of this guy. You can exceed summon a Gaia Charger or something else on top of the Exhibido. So you can potentially have like 59 or 20, yeah, 59 damage on the board with just that. Or right here you have 33. So if you, or 43, if you summon out one or two more other monsters, then you could potentially OTK your opponent. But this version is or this particular combo is super greedy, especially since Brionac is now semi-limited. I don't think you ever want to pull that off, so I wouldn't do that. But that is the combo with the Quasar. But yeah, Quasar, it could be any level 12 you want. I just decided to still keeping the Quasar just for the looks of it. Or maybe, you know, if my opponent saw this, they might think I have the Exhibido combo, but I'm not playing the Exhibido combo in this particular deck. But that is an option there. All right. Next off, you have Star Eater, level 11. So if you do Kaleidoscope once again, you can set up for a Unicorn plus a Gungnir. So that's a level 11 right there. And I think honestly that's about it with or Unicorn with Colossus. I think those are the only two combination of cards you can actually bring out with this. Don't think there's anything else you can bring out with a level 11 here. Yeah. So those are two types of if you send this with Kaleidoscope, you can bring it out. Or worst case scenario, if you had a Decisive Armor and a Veiler. Decisive Armor, I believe, is level 10. Let me count. 10? Yeah, it's 10 stars plus a Veiler. You can link or synchro summon into a Star Eater if you really needed to, but that is rarely the case. So that's Star Eater. And then for my level 10, some people play level 10, some people don't play a level 10 at all. I still like having a one level 10 in the deck. Namely, you can also play the Shooting Star if you wanted to. I wanted to play a level 10 that you can actually summon, so I'm playing Leo. So Leo, you can summon this with a Trishula and a Veiler. So that's level 10 right there. If you really need a Leo for some reason. But yeah, just Leo is probably the best level 10 thing that you can bring out synchro wise. Alright. Next off, we have the other two synchros. We have two Heralds. I've seen some people play 3. That's up to you. I think 2 is okay. You definitely want to use this with, obviously you use this with Kaleido and Unicorn. Or if you really want to synchro summon this thing out, you could potentially do a Veiler and we had Veiler and maybe either a Shrit on the board or Jin Releaser. You could potentially go into actually synchro summon a Arclight. But that rarely ever happens, but that is a situation where you can do that. And that's why I guess I play the Veilers, but no, honestly, you don't use Veiler for that purpose, but maybe you're grinding it out and you just need something, or you need to protect your board. There you go. You can potentially do that. But yeah, 2 Heralds for now. You can play triple if you like. I like to have the rest of my extra deck be a huge toolbox since you're playing so much level 4. So I don't think you'll ever use the 3rd Herald, but if you think you will, then go for it. But yeah. All right. We have Carnagoron. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the rest of his name. He's namely here just to protect your Genlock. So if you sometimes you can Genlock without needing to go into the Volvo chain. So he's good for, you know, if the case to try to book a unit, you can target him instead, or to try to target it with some sort of destruction effect, you can change the target to something else. But yeah, he's just there for that. He is a 2450 beater, so he's also pretty big for just being 2 level 4s, or for being a rank 4. Sometimes he can also be your towers out. If you have also Rhapsody, you can equip Rhapsody to this guy, and he'll become 3650. He loses 500 attack from the towers, so he's 3150. Still big enough to run over towers. So that is a option for you to out a towers. That rarely comes up, but you know, here we are. So one of that guy. One Silent on Arc, still a decent card. This particular format, not much to really say there. And then one Castell, you can play two Castell if you want. I found that, you know, you never really bring this guy out in this particular deck. Probably two Castell in something like a Stellar Knight deck, not so much in Nekroz, but he is there for utility. Giant Hand. Now Giant Hand back then was a prize card. Nowadays it's, you know, a 50 cents card. So Giant Hand I think was definitely playable back then. I just don't know, you know, if he's gonna be that great in here, but here we are. Then we have on the Exciton Knight. One of the best rank 4 exceeds ever printed. So yeah, gotta play him at least one copy. It's great for punishing your opponent who overextends. So there you go. Still Swarm Warch. I mean, he's in here for Cleaveforce, honestly, because Cleaveforce I think is Nekroz's worst matchup. It's like a rock paper scissors format. So Cleaveforce beats Nekroz, Nekroz beats BA and probably Shadolls and stuff like that, and then BA and Shadol I think beats Cleaveforce or something like that, more or less, you know. But Roach is just, you know, an optional way to kind of help you stop their pendulum summons. So that's that. Totally optional. Some of the other mandatory exceed monsters are the Lavalval Chain, and the Daigusto Emerald. Sometimes I've seen people play two of this just because you go through your either your extra deck or your main deck really quickly, and you just need something to grind out, you know, cards to grind out. Then Daigusto Emerald is really good to go into. For me, I think one's okay. Like I don't think you'll ever summon out a second one, but I think you do need at least one. And then Lavalval Chain, you know, it's for the Gin Lock, and I'll show that combo off in a second in case you don't know what it looks like. Okay, all right. Then I think the last two cards here we have Abyss Dweller. Abyss Dweller is a mandatory card in this deck also. Great against the mirror match. It's also a 22 beater because you can overlay this with the Unicorn, and they are water types. So and it's also really good against the mirror match, obviously, and against BA. So you really do need Dweller, maybe even two Dwellers. But I decided to split it up. Instead of playing like two Dwellers, I decided to put one Rhapsody, just to banish certain cards from the graveyard, and also equip it to something and make it bigger. And it's also, I guess, a way to out the towers. So that's my take on the extra deck here. A couple other cards you can also put in. Gaga Cowboy in case you need to just kill someone. Still pretty good. Or you're in time, you can burn someone for 800 damage. So Gaga Cowboy is still a very viable card. This card has been outclassed by basically Silent on the Arc and Castell, so don't really see this card too much anymore. Ragnar Zero, some decks will pump up their monsters, and you can kind of you know, gain some card advantage that way, but it's okay. And then Diamond Dire Wolf, you use this card to kind of clear, you know, other stuff, and you can do this against Nekroz and basically leave your board empty. So Diamond Dire, but I never really liked Diamond Dire that much. So, but yeah, those are some optional cards. Obviously, there's a couple other Exceed cards that you can play, but do remember, not you don't really have access to Tornado Dragon and the Kraken and a couple other cards just because those were built a little bit, or they came out a little bit later. But yeah, all right. Final thing I'm gonna show off here is the Jin combo, right? So for those who don't know, who haven't played this format, let me show you guys the Jin Lock and a couple of variations of it, and then we'll go from there. So I'm just gonna pull out the relevant cards, and that would be it. So I think that's all the relevant cards here. So you really need these two here. And then for your hand, it kind of doesn't really matter, but I'll pull them out anyways. Alright guys, I think that's all the relevant cards that we need for this Jin Lock. Alright, So, um, so what Jin Releaser does, in case you guys didn't know, if it's used as a tribute material or just material for ritual summon, as long as that ritual summon monster that you bring out is on the board, it will indeed um, not allow your opponent to special summon any monsters at all. So as long as it remains face up, obviously. So that's the I guess main use of this card. So the main way you bring this out, and I'll talk about some optional ways in a second, is that you need really just two cards. It's a two card combo, and you don't neg. But it can be interrupted. But if your opponent doesn't have any sort of interruption, or if they don't have a way to out it, then you essentially kind of win the game here. So the most basic form of the lock is you will generally need one of these two. So it's either Senju or Manju, and you need either the second card in your hand is um, generally any of these, or basically any of these cards in your opening hand. If it's Senju, it narrows it down because you will need something else. But if it's a Manju in your hand, you can come off with any of these cards. Senju, a little bit more different because it searches only for a monster, so you might need a combination of like a spell, like um, something like this, rather than this. But you can still potentially get it off. So let's go ahead and just use Manju for the to make it the most simplest way to do this. So let's say, for example, I have a Kaleidoscope and a Manju in my hand, right? So what you do is you summon out the Manju, you activate its effect. You're gonna search for. At this point, I would just go straight for Unicorn. You really don't need to search for Brionac. Brionac is in case you open it up, then great. If not, I would never search for the Brionac. Really, you kind of want to save the Brionac for the most part, unless you want to dump more Nekroz names in the graveyard. But for me personally, I just rather not burn through my Brionac so quickly. So I would search for the Unicorn, and then from here you go straight into your ritual summon. You activate Kaleidoscope. You're gonna send the Herald of Arclight to the graveyard. They will special summon right here with the Herald. You are going to add a Colossus to your hand. Alright, so far so good. Then what you're going to do is you're going to activate Colossus, pitch it to the graveyard, and then add the cycle to your hand. So this is going to be in your hand right here. And so this is your grave. You have a Colossus and a Arclight in the grave. Then what you're gonna do is you're gonna overlay these two for a Lavalval chain. Here you can detach either one. I usually detach the Unicorn because I guess I want it in the graveyard. Detach the Unicorn, send it to the graveyard. Go search your deck, and you're gonna dump the Jin. Right, so you're gonna dump the Jin to the graveyard. You're gonna activate Nekroz Cycle. You're gonna attempt to special summon Colossus, and with the Jin's other effect is that while it's in the graveyard, you can banish it as a one of the monsters for the cost of a ritual summon. So you banish the Jin, and then you special summon the Nekroz or Colossus from the graveyard using Cycle, and then yeah, that is your end board. So with two cards, you end up with a Lavalval chain and a Colossus with the Jin releaser essentially attached to it in terms of effect. And you want to summon in defense mode because it's big as it's 2300. So for the most part, most normal summonable monster cannot run this thing over. If you summon in attack mode, then you're gonna anything can run this over. So I would never summon this in attack mode. Always summon it in defense mode, unless you have something else to back it up with. But yeah, so that typically is how you Jin lock. The most simplest way. Assuming your opponent goes, they pass turn. You can also detach a Lavalval chain, send a strip to the graveyard if you want to, and then if you have like a Trishula or whatever, you can banish. Ritual summon some additional time. Also, you can also use Jin in the hand. If you draw Jin, it's not that bad honestly. Like you draw Jin, you can still pitch it to the graveyard, summon the Colossus or any other ritual summon you have. Um, and then if for some reason you do that, because most of the time, sometimes you'll do that, you'll pitch it, summon out the Colossus. Say Colossus die and you still have the Jin in the graveyard, you can also use the Jin as material to summon either one of these. So how you do that is, say Jin's in the graveyard, right? And you have one of these in your hand, or if you have a cycle, it doesn't really matter. One or the other. So you have either a cycle or you have a mirror. If this is in your hand, you can activate mirror. You can banish, say, like if you're trying to get out Trishula, it's level 9. You can use the Jin's effect to banish it itself. Then you can, if you have something like a double Colossus or a Shrit or something like that, you can also banish those in additional as additional materials for the ritual summon of Trishula from your hand. So Trishula will come out, you'll banish all 3 of these cards, and then you'll get the Trishula effect, and you also, now Trishula is also Jin locked, or has the Jin effect. Same thing with Gungnir. You can do that with mirror, summon, banish the Jin with a Unicorn, because because you're using Jin's effect as you're not banishing Jin using the mirror. You're banishing Jin using its own effect, and then you're banishing the Unicorn with the mirror's effect. So that should work, and you can bring out Gungnir, and then same thing with the Brionac. You can do that with a Jin and a Colossus using the mirror. Now it works the same way with cycle. If you have something like a cycle and you had like a Brionac in the graveyard, for example, you can activate cycle, tribute the Colossus from your hand, and then banish the ritual Jin from the graveyard, and then summon out Brionac, and it will have the Jin ability. Same thing with the rest of them. Same thing with the Gungnir. If you have like a level 4, you can have either another Unicorn, or you had a Senju. You can activate cycle. Sorry, this is getting a little messy here. I have so many cards. You can activate the cycle, tribute either like a Unicorn or just any level 4 in your hand, and if you have Jin in the graveyard, banish that, summon out Gungnir, and yeah, same thing with the Trishula. So those are just a couple of ways to do the Jin lock. Primarily, you're always gonna go for the Colossus version because that one costs the least amount of resources. It's generally the most consistent. And then, like I said, this generally only works if you have a Jin in your hand already, and you end up like discarding it, or you end up just sending it to the graveyard without ever using it for the Colossus. Those are some just other ways to get into Jin. I have double Jin lock before. Like I had in my hand, sent it to the graveyard as a tribute for a regular Nekroz summon, and then I had it in the graveyard, and then I ended up banishing it again, summon out a second monster with the Jin attached to it. So yeah, you could definitely double Jin lock in one game. Some people, that's why some people play 2. I think 2 is just overkill. You just honestly just need the 1, and then yeah, it's pretty good in that sense. And that's the same reason why we run the Rhapsody, in case your opponent sends the Jin to the graveyard and they don't use it immediately. If you can, I would just bring out Rhapsody, banish their Jin from the graveyard. That way they don't get a chance to Jin lock you. Or if you have a Lancia, that's also really another good way to sort of protect yourself, I guess. But anyways, I think that's it. I know this video, once again, pretty long. But I wanted to be thorough with this, making it is a super old deck. It's over 8 years old. Some if you're a new Yu-Gi-Oh player, you're not gonna really know some of these details. And if you're an old player like me, this deck is so old. Most of us have forgotten how to even like play the deck, or what it even looks like. So it's kind of nice. Hopefully this video is kind of like a nice refresher for you guys, or if not educational or entertaining, but yeah, hopefully that's is good for you guys. Anyways, I think that's it. Just something I wanted to talk about, something I wanted to share. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you have any suggestions or any ideas, or if I got anything wrong, let me know. It's been so long. Like I said, even I don't really effectively know how to play the deck anymore. But it's just kind of fun to mess around with. And I think all the stuff I said is totally legal in terms of the plays. But if they're not for some reason, just let me know. I'm not 100% gonna always be correct, but yeah. Anyways, guys, hope that was enjoyable, and then we'll see you guys next time.